morning. Good morning, Sonic. How you
Good
doing,
morning.
Dracula?
Man, I'm doing all right. I had a hard time, deciding if it was going to be the sad video or the pump up video, because some of the coins are going up today. A lot of the coins are going down today.
Yeah, I mean, most of them feel like they're going down. For me personally, it feels like my coins are going down. But I appreciate you trying to bring some positive energy to the ecosystem,
Yeah.
because GMSONIC, we're your home, for the only home you have for raw, unfiltered insights in the Sonic community, and we're trying to do our best here to get the hope back up. I feel like the sentiment was changing a little bit. I was seeing a lot more bull posts lately. It was just kind of ironic because it felt a little too late, dude. It feels like a little desperate now. Now that we're getting a little too low, people are getting active,
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we've talked about this a lot the last few episodes that kind of like the deal we went through with the tariffs. The same thing is just kind of going on with the macro with the Middle East. It's like, one day you get told it's over and everything dumps. Then the next day we're back. It's like these like little tiny they're like mini cycles within the cycle. I mean, it's like, depending on what happens on any day, it's like we'll get a little momentum and then it's like, oh, well, now maybe the US is going to join the war. Maybe they're not. Like, honestly, it's probably just guys trying to get better entries or save their shorts or longs. But
smart money might just be waiting for better entries, right? Because it does seem the play. I mean, we got people buying, we got big people buying. Look, we're gonna give you guys some hope, okay? We're gonna give you guys some hope. We got a great episode for you today. We got Will from Amalgam today. Exciting new project, new primitives being built here. We're also gonna be talking about Permissionless, what you can expect there. We're both gonna be there now. We got some airdrop information for you guys, how the first season's going or went, and how the second season looks like it's going to be going, ways you can maximize your rewards. And also, we're going to, answer some seriously dark questions, like what are the new scams coming up on the timeline. So it's going to be a great one, guys. But Drac, let's look at the charts, dude. Before we give them the hopium, let's give them the fear, dude.
All right, well, I guess I'll start with Sonic in that case, since
Labs points out that the bull posting might have been just this, the Kaido yappers.
Yeah, we got the Yap program coming. I think that's end of next week.
The yappers will see this.
I know that the morale on the timeline seems like all-time low, but honestly, I don't know. We're still just kind of holding on here. I think that we are still looking at this like crab thing where Bitcoin is going to have to finally it feels like we've just been kind of settling. But I still think that we have at least one more new Bitcoin all-time high and like a real all-time high in us before alts and everything else finally move. So we're hanging in there right now. I mean, everything's, you got to always take it with like everything's down today. Like I said, we keep just kind of flip-flopping, but oh no. Junior says he'd rather not watch today. I'm in a very bad FUD mood. Good luck, guys.
FUD us, dude. Hit us with the FUD, dude. Tell me what's bothering you, bro. Is it because the price is so down? Is it because it looks like it's a good slope to sled down here?
And if you can't watch, I totally understand. Thanks for watching the first 10 minutes. I appreciate it.
Yeah, give us a retweet before you go, though.
Yeah, retweet the stream before you head out. But yeah, I mean, it's just like we're in this like pattern. S kind of has like this unique situation we've talked about before as well, where there's the token in the community already exists. So usually when something like a big airdrop happens, the token's dropping for the first time. There's a lot of mayhem. There's a lot of, people trying to scoop the bottom. There's a lot of volume, and it's like, we're kind of like in a unique situation where people have been buying S, but they also know that a significant airdrop's about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a situation that, hasn't been like addressed before. So that's my take on it right now is I'm still just hanging in there. I think that we're still going to stay around this level. Let me zoom out on the chart because as I've said before, this level, has basically been tested a couple times. It feels like this like 30 cents area is kind of like where people go, okay, that's the buy zone. That's where somebody should step in here and start buying. So you look at this, but then it's, like I always say, it always helps to kind of look at Bitcoin. I mean, through this everything that's happened, right? All this latest macro did was slow Bitcoin down a little bit. It didn't really, Bitcoin's not tanking. It's barely moving. We're still above 100K. I feel like as long as we're above 100K, there's really not a whole lot to worry about. It's temporary. You're just going to have to, we're just going to have to weather some of this macro. I mean, there's just nothing to do about it, really. I mean, as long as we're dealing with this stuff.
As long as Bitcoin stays above 100K. Oh, wow. Okay. So this is, I see now what you mean. This is the weekly chart. So yeah, okay. All of this has occurred in the last like month, and it really has just kind of stalled that momentum here at
like if you look here, it's like we were marching up, and the macro has stalled us, but it's not really, honestly, if you told me that there was like a fresh war in the Middle East that the US might be getting involved in, I would have expected just to see full stack red candles on Bitcoin.
So if you were a Magic 8-Ball, Dracula, if you were a Magic 8-Ball and I were shaking you right now, your prognosis would be this. I don't know if prognosis is the right word. It'd be wait and see.
Yeah, the prognosis. There was a really good post where the guy was laying out all the things that there are right now to actually be bullish about crypto, and he said all you have to do is stay retarded a little longer.
Yeah, everyone else is getting burnt out. Just stay a little bit longer.
You just got to, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is we're just kind of in a holding pattern. I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on how you feel about your bags. You might want to cut some. You might want to just wait and see. But I don't think it's like a situation where like we are like, oh, now we're in the bear market, or now everything's going to zero. We're about to have that 99% retrace on everything,
I think there's still some opportunity here. Who knows? I mean, economically, macro wise, it's still kind of like confusing because it seems like everything's going up. Someone posted today, the Israeli stock market up, Iranian stock market up, US stock market up. So apparently a lot of people really like war, to trade war. So, we're kind of unique in this. I think it's still because of the further out on the risk curve, right? Like if war is coming, why wouldn't I just shift all my money into something more that I know is going to pump? I know oil is going to go up, right? I know all these things are going to be connected to like massive world powers mobilizing. So, I think we'll weather it a little bit, and nothing ever happens anyway, so it's gonna, we're gonna go up anyway.
Listen to Chud, That's how I get
$4.2 billion worth of Bitcoin and ETH options expire today. So expect some volatility once they expire. Yeah. Also, we talk about our specific markets. There are some very specific mechanisms at play here, right? Specifically, we talk about Sonic, the airdrop, season 2 starting, market maker switchover. We got a lot of things kind of pushing us, I feel like, temporarily down, but I think the momentum will switch soon. I'm counting on it. Yep. Nothing happens, dude.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like I said, I get it. It's hard to watch everything. It's hard to watch your Rabby wallet net value slowly creep down every day. But that's just also part of like what we're here for. Crypto is volatile. The swings are volatile. You have to remember that you have these like legs down and these swings down, but then you also pump like no other asset you could possibly hold. So it's kind of just part of the game,
Some guy wants to sacrifice me to the price gods. Look, I've already been sacrificed if you looked at my portfolio, and it has done nothing. So I'd recommend finding someone a little bigger.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in a twist of events, now not only am I going to be in New York, but Corville is coming to Permissionless. So if you need to sacrifice him for price, that's you can find them up there in Brooklyn.
I guess
next
book
week.
the ritual room, with pentagrams and shit. They got a permissionless, and I'm sure they got one in Brooklyn somewhere.
Yeah, it's permissionless. Permission to sacrifice Corville.
Permissionless means anything goes at So anyway, Proof of A, I agree. It's painful to watch us slowly bleed out on the timeline, but things are going to get better. So let's talk about how it's going to get better. Why Sonic is awesome. We got lots of new projects launching. We got, dude, come on. We got even Eggs is coming for. After everything I've done for Eggs, all the frying I've done for them, we got an exciting new project coming up. We got Will from Amalgam here, and Amalgam, dude. Before we pull up Will, let me pull this up here. They have the first Delex, dude. You ever heard of a Delex Dracula?
I haven't. I know that these guys are like working on like basically some new primitive stuff. So excited to hear about it.
Yeah, it seems like an all-in-one suite. So let's bring up Will. Hello, Will. How are you doing today?
Hey guys, how you guys doing?
We're doing great, dude. Well, I can't speak for Dracula. I'm doing great.
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah. So this is Amalgam, right? Multiply DeFi products, one protocol. Could you give me the short pitch for it, Will? And then we'll talk who you are.
Yeah, sure. Happy to give the short pitch. The idea that we went after with this project is to combine a DEX and a lending protocol into one primitive, not one built on the other or the other built on the one, just like one single unified primitive. So sort of like if Aave and Uniswap had a baby, like that's what we're trying to build. And the main reason, ask the why of it is because we wanted to create a lending protocol that was actually autonomous and didn't use oracles, and that we could actually create markets for any token, right? This is something that I think has been on the peripheral of Compound, for example, put their first white paper talked about how token values are obscene because there's no downward buy pressure or sell pressure, right? And so it's because you can't get a data feed for these meme coins and shit coins. Like they just end up pumping for no reason because there's no way to short them, right? And so that's like one thing that we're really excited about. The second piece is the capital efficiency, where because we have integrated them and unified the functioning of both the DEX and lending protocol, the assets in the invariant curve that are not getting used get lent out, right? So market makers are earning swap fees and lending fees. And, with respect to another solution for this, like Uniswap tried to solve this with concentrated liquidity, but when you concentrate your liquidity, you also concentrate your impermanent loss risk. And so with this setup, instead of creating more risk for more return, you're actually not increasing your impermanent loss risk, and you're getting swap fees and lending fees at the same time to offset that impermanent loss risk.
Interesting. So this is crazy, dude. So when I come in and use this, I'm just putting in like one LP, and it's being lent out as well. Like, can I use it as collateral at the same time?
Yes, you can, and yes, you are. It's being lent out and it's being swapped at the same time, and because it's all put together and designed in this unified way, the LP position can be used as collateral. The single tokens can be used as collateral, and then the single tokens can be borrowed, and then the LP position can also be borrowed, which when you borrow an LP position, instead of having impermanent loss, you can flip the payout chart and get impermanent gain, which gives things like being able to go long on volatility, right? Doing like sort of a straddle payout, all in one place.
Wow, this is crazy. So all in one place, I can do all of this stuff. What gave you the idea to build this? You said was it the Compound?
Yeah, I mean, I got involved in DeFi sort of, I would say at the tail end of DeFi summer. I wasn't like quite early enough to get all the yield farming opportunities, but I started using protocols like Compound, and I was also market making on Uniswap V2. And what I ended up doing is, because the stable rates were so high and borrowing ETH was so low, I would do things like put in, stables into like Compound and then borrow ETH and then try to figure out how to make yield with ETH. So I would then take the ETH and stables and put it into Uniswap. And I basically have these like delta neutral market making strategies. And so I was like sort of putting all these things together on my own and like figuring out how to like get the max amount of yield that I could. And I think the one thing, so I was already thinking a lot about the space and how to like improve it. And I saw a paper from somebody that I really respect, from just one of the other things that I learned a ton about DeFi and crypto in general from a podcast called the Zero Knowledge Podcast. And Tarun from Robot Ventures and Gauntlet was often, I think he was like the host of it for a long time. And he wrote a paper called basically on this topic of like all the different ways people were putting together DEXs and lending protocols. And the really interesting thing is there's a rich history here, but I think it's sort of paved with failures. And I, my thesis on why there's been so many failures, like Aave had a product where they had the ability to, you could put in an AMM token and you could borrow against it, called Aave AMM. Alpha Hemera allowed you to leverage your AMM tokens. Balancer boosted pools allowed you to earn, lending fees and trading fees at the same time. Gearbox, obviously similar, like allowed you to leverage your AMM position, and they're still obviously doing quite well. But a lot of those other protocols never quite took off, right? Or they never, Aave sunset, Aave AMM, bouncer boosted pools were a little bit too expensive. They also didn't support like any token. They could only support like so many tokens because of what was on Aave. And my thesis, my point in all this is that what I saw the problem being is that they were always trying to layer a DEX on top of a lending protocol, or layer a lending protocol on top of a DEX. And the synergies when you put them together are sort of like mind blowing, right? And I'm still seeing this in the market. Like, we've got now these new variations that I would say are just like sort of like balancer boosted pools plus, right? Fluid is doing this. Euler Swap is doing this. But they're all just trying to, stack them rather than unifying them. And so that's the thing that we put a lot of work and thought into how to do this safely, and are really excited about, the differentiation that we're bringing to the market.
Yeah. So
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, essentially, your guys' thesis then is that synthesizing them at the primitive level, like at the very base level, building them together, it's just unlocking so much more value that this is going to kind of find a market fit that wasn't apparent before. Are we talking essentially like higher yields, like you're saying, more flexibility? I'm actually kind of really interested in also what you said earlier. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Greg. I was really just going to summarize it first, but now that I'm talking, I'm thinking what you're saying about finding kind of more fair pricing for tokens because of the shorting, right? Everyone hates shorting, right? Everyone always thinks shorting is like evil, demonic, but it is like how you find fair prices, right? Just like an order book, you got to have both sides of the pressure, else you're just whatever.
Yeah, and this has been a problem in crypto forever because you have a token, you have a meme token, and like meme tokens is just the latest iteration of this. But there's been, it was like dog tokens 3 years ago, and it was like before that, it was just tokens in general. And you have this thing that there's a way to buy it, but there's not a way to sell it, right? If you don't have access to it. And that just makes it an inefficient market. And it's exciting because you have these charts that are up only temporarily, right? Until the merry-go-round stops, and then they, come tumbling down. And, I would never advocate for shorting crypto, like, because it's like you can get uber wrecked very quick. But there are situations where you're like, this is not sustainable, right? And I think that there's a lot of money actually to be made for, strategically shorting these things if you have access to be able to short them. And many tokens, we still don't have that.
Yeah. Saw Martin Shkreli shorting Fartcoin. He made a lot of money, dude. So yeah, I'm totally down for it. I guess I was gonna say, like, there is something to consider with our market where people seem to kind of like the inefficiency of markets, because a lot of people tend to profit off the inefficiency of these markets. So how much demand there might be. But then I thought about it a second longer. I was like, well, Martin Shkreli's doing it. A lot of the reasons people get really excited when like a meme coin gets listed on like centralized exchanges, because now they have access to shorting it. So a decentralized solution is kind of going to be win, dude. It's going to be an epic win, if I say so myself. I'm kind of excited for it.
Yeah. No, what I was going to touch on that I thought was interesting was it was on the other page where it had mentioned kind of like recipes for your position. So I think that's interesting. So like right out the gate, will it be like you can kind of create your like a recipe based on like, like if you're trying to be like delta neutral or, like how does that work with like the recipe stuff? Like creating like a big position out of all the factors you can,
Yeah, I mean, the recipes were actually something that was simplified from my own. I have the problem sometimes of thinking to maybe right curve and not left curving things enough. And so the really interesting thing about like this product is you have, these three types of collateral, these three types of borrows. And with that, the types of payout charts you can create is like it's 2 degrees of freedom, right? You can have this much gamma or that much negative gamma and this much delta and that much negative delta. And so it almost becomes overwhelming. And so the recipes were a way of being like, all right, let's just like take all these degrees of freedom mathematically and package them into like, this is something somebody kind of knows what it is. And like, we'll just put them into a list. And so we've created a really fun UI that actually allows you to take all these different like positions. We call it the deluxe view. We have kind of the more entry level view to the app that is a little bit less complexity, less brain damage. And then this deluxe view gives you this like more I don't know, tools, views, and into like how you can create all these different sort of payouts in one transaction, right? Plus a few approvals that we're working through. And the heat map too, I think this is something that I put a lot of thought into. I don't think people understand impermanent loss at all. I think that they think it's same way that I don't think people understand market making. Essentially, the way I describe impermanent loss in market making is it's a race. Can your fees keep up with or exceed your loss from the divergence in price? Yeah. And when the price rebounds, you're fine, right? If the price reverts to the mean, then you just get the fees. You have no risk. That's why it's impermanent. And so this view is designed to help people understand that, because if you click on like leveraged market making, you'll see and then maybe go like, instead of the daily, do the monthly view in the top.
Oh, here we go.
Oh yeah.
You can see how like this position plays out over time. And I don't think we have some features that we're going to add to this shortly. We're trying to keep this simple for the beta release that we did a few months ago. Still in testnet, but if you really crank up the gamma, what you will see is this like very thin slice of green and like red on both sides. And that's basically what Uniswap v3 gave to people is through concentrated liquidity, you have this very thin slice of profitability. And if the price diverges, 10% up or down, you could lose 10% or more of your portfolio, right? And so we're not necessarily solving that problem, but this heat map is meant to show people how their position will develop over time, given a bunch of different scenarios. So right here, this is really great if the price is sort of long upward, right?
Yeah. This is okay. So that's a really interesting way, I guess, to visually show this, right? In that your trend over time for impermanent loss. Now, for me, my understanding of impermanent loss is always just, I'm going to eat it on a volatile asset at some point, right? But it's interesting to kind of lay it out like this. I noticed that we really kind of just have stable assets here right now. We'll be able to make even more exotic pairings.
It's any token can get added. The only reason they're stable tokens is because the developers didn't, add like something volatile. So that it's not, there's no limitations for it to be stable pairs. And you can basically add any token, any pair of tokens.
Dude, this sounds like a definite improvement in the UI for AMMs, right? In terms of LPing, right? I have a lot more information at my disposal here and a lot more flexibility in how I'm doing this. It's interesting. Drek, you got any ideas on how to use this here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds pretty exciting to, kind of like what I was saying before when I was first bringing up the recipes, the idea of all in the same spot, kind of like whipping up like a delta neutral position, being able to like lever, it's, yeah, I mean, I think it's like a really interesting approach. And yeah, I mean, I've never seen anything like it. So, and yeah, I think I love seeing the heat map because, especially using things like TradingView or like more, I don't know, like traditional tools, heat maps are like really useful. So it's nice to see that you guys have like put so much care into like the information that you can get and the UI and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's also a nice faucet. You should go click on the top right so you can have some faucet tokens.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
The green button at the bottom will just mint them all if you have Sepolia ETH.
And then you can just kind of play around with it.
Yeah.
I don't think I have Sepolia on this. Let's see.
Sorry to derail you.
Yeah, no worries.
Well, so the next question is about when are you guys planning to launch and how are you, is there going to be like a token rolling out? Like what's the whole launch plan?
Yeah, I mean, the launch plan is we're aiming August right now. We've done 2 audits so far and we're wrapping up feedback from those audits. We're going to do a 3rd audit with Cantina. So hoping that should start next week. Been grinding pretty hard to make sure we get everything ready for that. And once that'll be a 3-week, $60,000 prize pool, public audit competition. And that will take 3 weeks, another week to like wrap up the feedback afterwards. And then, we're pretty optimistic that the punch list after that will be short since we've already put a lot of work into responding to feedback from 2 audits and then launching after that. So targeting August right now, token will be, trail that by about 3 months is the goal right now. And, some other things that will follow is, some sort of vault program, where we will either work with like an existing aggregator or just create some vaults around our product because we think that there will be some confusion if people don't necessarily want to do the deluxe thing. They just, they have like, I have Sonic, I'm going to put it in. I heard this was cool. I don't want to think about the brain damage of which pool to put it in. So we'll have like just one asset, being able to deploy at a time where that will then get deployed to the most yield earning pools automatically through aggregation, right? So that'll be something we'll launch between August and hopefully before TGE, just depending on how long the development cycles go and who we work with on that. Because ideally we won't build that, we'll just work with somebody else. And then and so we also have some fun plans about ways to use our product. We think that there's some really interesting arbitrages that will get created that won't be necessarily intuitive at first, maybe to more the audience. So things like, hey, maybe we won't have a ton of volume because we're a new DEX, right? So how do you solve that problem? We're actually going to borrow liquidity from our pools and then deploy that on other DEXs where there is volume. And what this does is now our LPs are earning lending fees because we're borrowing the liquidity. We're then redeploying it onto another DEX and earning the delta between the cost to borrow and the fees on the other DEX, right? So this now becomes like an interesting way of almost becoming a DEX aggregator on the liquidity provision side, where we'll do this at first, but eventually the market will become privy to the fact that this is a risk-free ARB. And, you can, borrow it in one place and deploy it in the other place. And this will actually somewhat guarantee that the borrowing costs are in line with the market rate for what it costs to earn what you're earning on any other DEX.
Wow. This is crazy, dude. You guys got plans. So launch, we're kind of expecting around fall then, right? But then you guys got some nice plans, I think. We don't ever have anyone lay out their plan for like how they're actually going to capture market share. I kind of like that you did that, Will. Like how you guys have an actual business plan here. I'm loving what I'm hearing, dude. A lot of people just kind of deploy and forget.
I was about to say, yeah, like 3 audits and a business plan. Yeah, which it's funny. It's funny that that's a crazy thing to hear nowadays, right? I mean, it's like you should be doing these things if you're launching a new project.
Well, I always joke too. It's like we're planning to do the product before the token. I know that's sort of old school, right?
You haven't mentioned a pre-sale or a TGE or anything, dude. What's up with that?
Yeah, I mean, we put a lot of thought into the product, right? We really led with the product and put all of our energy into that. And the token's important just because of space, and we also want to take the fees that we earn on the lending side for a protocol and make those something that token holders have access to, so that the token is not just like a Ponzi scheme, but actually is there to capture value from the protocol, right? And distribute that to the community.
Well, right, for sure, man. Well, yeah, man, this is all exciting. I'm actually really excited for this. Everybody keep an eye out for Amalgam coming soon, probably towards end of summer. And we really appreciate you coming on, man. Definitely, come back and give us updates when you got, when you guys are about to launch and all that good stuff.
Yeah, man, we're excited to play with it some more. Once I get some gas in my wallet, then I pulse it, and then I'm gonna play around with it. Because I have been dabbling in the LPing, but I do get kind of destroyed by the V3, dude. As much as I win, I lose about the same. I'd probably break even, So
yeah.
Some additional tooling, I could definitely use it. But yeah, thanks, Will. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Amalgam, everybody, check it out. Beta.amalgam.xyz. We'll put the link out and everything. But now let's move on to our next segment. Let's say goodbye to Will. Thank you again, Will. And now let's move on to our next segment here, Dracula, which is what did I call it here? Sonic Summer airdrop, dude. That's what we're talking about. There have been some developments, haven't there? Some developments in the airdrop world.
Yeah, so season 1 wrapped up, and season 2.
I was going to say, do we want to talk about season 1 or season 2? Season 1's wrapped up. There's some estimations on what your points are going to be worth, but nothing confirmed yet from the labs.
Season 2, with this article from The Assistant, they are saying that the idea is season 1 they were, hoping to obviously bring in new liquidity, fresh liquidity. Season 2 is about making it sticky. So from, it's not like a super long article because he's just kind of laying out the main, what's most important, which is basically that I think there's going to be like an emphasis on gems. The idea being that, you get the gems from the protocols on the network. So they want to reward the users as much as possible. Emphasis on people sticking around on the network, using the dApps. We're going to see, obviously, I've said this before, that we kind of had like that first wave of dApps, like the big major ones, and the DEXs and everything else. So we've kind of been like, I feel like there was a wave, and then it's like slowly since then, you've just been kind of hearing about the things that are on the way, the things that are getting built. And I think that like that second wave is like we're really close to getting hit here, probably like end of summer, early fall, with like a bunch of extra new stuff for people to play with. So I think it's a good approach. There's going to be multiple seasons for the airdrop, and I think that's like it's one of your biggest challenges is you see these airdrop programs. Luckily, Sonic's had time to kind of like sit back and, monitor what other chains have done. And, you see these programs, especially like on some of these L2s that are just like fly by night. Like, you do this points program, this airdrop program, and everybody comes in and they farm and they farm and they farm and everything's looking great and the metrics are looking good. Then the airdrop happens and it's ghost town. Everybody leaves. So I like this idea of, trying to like emphasize people sticking around and actually using the network every day. There have been some changes on the rules. I don't know if it's in this article, but I think it'll be more of like the gems are not going to be immediately liquid like they used to be. So I think in a way, the gems are almost more like a point system.
The gems, they're no longer liquid. They're like real gems, right? They're little crystals.
Yeah. Yeah. There's another article where I guess they kind of lay out the rules a little more in terms of like, I think it'll almost be like the gems are almost like, look at them like points, because, you'll hold them and then, for when season 2 ends, then they'll, see your gems and, drop your S and all that stuff.
Right on. So you're being paid essentially to be loyal to, you're getting loyalty points.
Yeah. And I like this idea a lot. Let's see. Fallout Zone here says, I like the approach for season 2, but understand why they wanted to give stables and holding so much during season 1. Sonic has native USDC because of this approach. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's like, obviously getting native USDC is pretty important. Not pretty important. It's very important. And you have to hit certain benchmarks and metrics for them to be willing to, do that for you, basically. So yeah, I think that, it was a good move because, now we got it. We're gearing up for season 2 here. They're adding more assets to like things that are getting whitelisted. I think we will see as time goes on more like of the actual like eco tokens continue to get whitelisted to, be available for gems and points and everything. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's the best move we can do here. And yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of people upset on the timeline, but you got to zoom out. You got to look at the whole market right now. Everybody's dealing with, this price action at the moment, unless you're just a Bitcoin maxi, then you're, comfy. But
old heads always stay winning. You notice that? The boomers, they get their houses at 2%. The boomers, they get their Bitcoin at $10. The boomers. Anyway. Yeah, I think what's happening here, Fallout Zone makes a good point. I think what's happening here is price is not necessarily the most important thing, it seems like, to the Labs team at the moment, in that the most important thing is let me show you something. Let me show you something Sam Hardcore posted. Is like some of these other more kind of important KPIs when it comes to like success of a product, like active users, returning users. What do you call that? Sticky users, like how many users are still around. And I think that's kind of what they're focusing on here, obviously. And I think the risk that they're taking here isn't so much that it's almost like a two-legged bet in my mind, right? There's a bet that like this will actually keep people sticky, perhaps even beyond the points program ending, right? It seems like that's what they're really trying to do. Everyone's afraid of the I just give you money and then you run away airdrop. So I do kind of respect that approach. And it seems like the idea after that would be like once everyone's on board and activity is here, like once all the products are here, once we built the fairground, then we can make some money, dude, which makes sense. And I kind of hope that this does play out. Obviously, I'm heavily invested here, perhaps over invested. It is what it is. But I'm glad that they're actually looking at it this way. See, I even hearted it.
Oh, you hearted it for sure. Yeah, no, I mean, and I was kind of going over that, like when you were dropped out for a second, that obviously that's like such a big challenge to balance, trying to reward people, but also keep them sticky and they just don't move on to like the next thing. And then also, I mean, obviously Sonic itself has like a decent sized community that just came from Phantom.
So I want to answer a couple of these here. What about the insider secret TG for selling together? We've got a TG, dude. It's in the description. Check it out, MWS. Get in there. And that's where we're always talking about how I'm losing money every single day.
Yeah, except it's called the Buyers Club. You're not supposed to sell in there.
Yeah, we're buying together. And you have to sell on your own, buddy. Social media seems to be more active late regarding Sonic talk, but then again, it could be just my algo. It's a little bit of your algo, but it's also those Kaido yaps. That's another component of this, is they're trying to get the word out. And some guy you have to find the balance though. You can't just rely on the tech. I think this is a distinction from the tech though. I think there's a distinction between tech and the business and then also the price, right? Like think of like a company, right? Google has a tech product that they build, but then they also need to build the business around that in terms of like distribution, partner apps, all that kind of stuff. You need to build the ecosystem too. And then you worry about like the stock price, right? Like it all kind of feeds into itself. So like if there's not, look, what they could do is they could do some market fuckery and push the price up, right? Like they have a lot of S, they could print more or whatever. But if they're trying to build something that actually works, they need to get people on board. What do you think, Drake? Am I being too nice to labs right now?
No, I mean, I think that what you're saying actually totally makes sense because what I was saying with Amalgam, where I was like, wow, you guys have audits and a long-term plan and this and that. It's like, you have to view it as when you're building a business, not just in crypto, right? Like look at how many businesses are in the green every year just from, when I say in the green, I'm talking about the token price or the stock price is in the green, even though they've lost billions of dollars in that quarter or whatever. And I think part of that is because people are saying, hey, they're losing money right now, but I see like the vision here. And when it starts making money, I'm getting a good value on the token right now still, or the price of the stock, and so, yeah, I mean, I think like what you're saying is dead on, where it's like, you have to focus on everything else around the token, right? And I mean, I know that's hard because like some guy says here, optics are different. He says, I feel for the labs team. They are working very hard. And yeah, I mean, I agree. It's like optics are different and, all people care about is number go up. But, if you look at something like the fund that's just scooping up Sonic and, Mitch said, hey, he said, I love the price right now because I'm looking at, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever. That's what so it's similar in the stock market. Like I said, you have these companies like Uber or Amazon that were actually losing, they were losing the bleeding money. They were bleeding money forever until they were like actually making money. But you have to look at it like if you are investing longer term, is Sonic setting themselves up for success? And ultimately, I think they are. I think they're making, you know, you got to build that foundation. And to an extent, you do have to kind of be like, look, I can't worry about, you know, every day, every single price move, every single day.
Yeah.
They have to focus on, like you said, making the foundation strong, you know, getting the best dApps, what's going to keep volume coming, what's going to keep, you know, people like wanting to use the network. And that's what should be the focus right now, because yes, there was Phantom, but Sonic is 6 months old.
Yeah.
It's still a baby right now.
I also want to, you know, I think there's an interesting distinction here in that I can definitely see what some guys saying here in that optics play differently. Price is the most important. I agree with you guys here on this, in that, but it depends on what beast you are. This is a big jungle. There's lots of different beasts in it, and they all have different kind of like goals and how they operate, right? So like obviously for a meme coin, like what is our game plan here, right? Like rapid price appreciation and crazy volatility is really great for an exit, right? Like a meme coin. But if you're building for longevity, it's really not that great. It's kind of like a cross to bear, right? So, I mean, I may be carrying a little too much water for the labs here, but I think it's understandable to not be like up only all the time. Am I happy about it? No, obviously not. But am I being realistic? And I'm not footing my bags. Take a note, fellas.
Yeah.
Also, slight change here, but Yankee has a kind of an interesting point to raise here. It would be cool in season 2 if they could do things like double points weekends, temporary target points boost to push certain assets, tie in with community events and activities, try to make it more interactive than last time. I think this would be interesting. I think it would maybe reward. I think why it's interesting for us is because we're so online all the time. So for us, it's fun to play it like a game. Like, give me like something. I'm watching the news. Let me do something different every week, right? But Dracula brought up an interesting idea or pointed out something interesting about points off the show. I think yesterday we're talking about like Hyperliquid's points, and I thought what was interesting is that they didn't tell you anything about them. Mm-hmm. They didn't tell you how you're going to get them. They were just like, you just gotta be here, use something, maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
And I think that might be the better way, is not to be super specific in the criteria, because it might piss people off. But what it also does is encourage speculation. Like, I got to try everything. I got to do everything to see if I can get points, you know?
Yeah, no, it was an interesting way they handled it where, like Corval was saying, it was kind of like, and this is talking about like when people were just trying to farm the initial hype drop. And I mean, everything was kind of on the table. Everything was possible, you know, every week. Sometimes they wouldn't even tell you every week, but usually sometime in the end of the week or something, either they would say what got you points that week, or, you know, someone had like figured out what, you know, but yeah, it's like you said, it did also create a lot of speculation online. There was always a ton of chatter about like, oh, like what's happening this week? Has anybody found out like what's giving points, what isn't? So yeah, and I mean, I think that idea is cool. What Yankee's saying, you know, make it a little Call of Duty double point weekend. You know, you got to play Esper for like 10 hours, but no, I mean, yeah, there's lots of. Ultimately, that is a good point. I mean, there's lots of things that could be done with this. I guess it is like a different strategy when you're being fully like 100% transparent about what's earning. Because then that makes people say, oh, well, I know for sure if I bring funds there and farm this thing or that thing, that's going to earn points towards the drop. So, I mean, I guess it is two ways to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We want to try and push user activity. This becomes much harder when the big focus is on stable coins. It feels like eco coins have taken a backseat and the community is the ecosystem. Fair point. I think driving activity but I also kind of think that by kind of focusing on applications for this, the idea I think is to kind of focus tangentially on ecosystem tokens that way, right?
I'll put that one up. I mean, yeah, like, and I think you're going to see that with season 2, since the emphasis is on using things on the network. I think we are going to see more of like the, you know, DEX tokens, hopefully eco tokens, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I do know that this could be too much alpha, but I think Assistant did briefly have a post about it. Like I know, like for instance, on the memes, they are working on a concept that, you know, it's like, oh, like you can stake and earn points, and you know, I think they are like kind of willing to be a little more experimental now that we're like in this phase where it's more like, how do we get people to use everything on the network?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm stoked. We'll see what they announce at Permissionless. Maybe some things will change up at Permissionless. Last thing I had on Sonic Summer here, other than Permissionless, where Andre is supposedly going to speak. I'll get to the bottom of this. I'm going to stick a microphone in that guy's face one way or another. Sonic Strategy Buys, which you briefly mentioned, I think they announced that the second tranche was closed, and they still haven't. Someone had said, I don't know if this is true, but someone said they still hadn't finished the first tranche, filling the first tranche, meaning they've locked in the investors, but they still haven't finished the execution, right? So they're still buying. So, hey, guys, Canadian funds believe in us. Why don't you, bro?
Yeah, Canada's coming in clutch. So you need to petition your local investors and governments to get involved.
Yeah, we got to get Andre Cronje to make some deal with Trump so he can get like a position or something, get a green card, and also sell 500 million Sonic to Trump or whatever.
Yeah, that's an idea.
Well, anyway, I have something else here. Permission. Oh, that was my warning for Permissionless. Is Andre, I'm going to stick a microphone in your face, bro. Be ready. So if you're not watching this show, well, you missed out, dude. Next thing up I have is just some general crypto culture stuff. As I was seeing this stuff, I don't know who Tay the Gamer is, or Tay the Gamer is. Do you know this guy? But apparently he's a pedophile, a groomer, a cheater, failed husband. They went in on him, dude.
Wow.
They hate this guy.
Wow. Okay. They do not like Tay the Gamer.
Look at this list. It starts off so strong. Pedophile, groomer, cheater, failed husband, absentee father, clout farming, fraud. Who cares about that, dude? You called him a pedophile, bro. Crypto scammer. You called him a bad dad, a bad husband. But he's saying that this guy, the reason I have this big expose thread on him is because this guy I follow, Scooter. Do you know this guy?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
He says that was bragging on stream about his Luck.io badge. This is what it is. This is what the center of this issue is Luck.io.
Yeah.
You guys know about Luck.io, new casino?
Been hearing
about it. They're not paying me.
Yeah.
They're not paying me or Drax, so don't go there. If you go there, don't come back, okay? I don't want anything to do with you until they give me a deal. And you'll see why soon. So this guy's bragging about it. He got some guy's Luck.io badge taken away. He's just going in on him. But anyway, let's talk about Luck.io. Luck.io is the new fraud casino going around where Kobe had a good post about this in that he was outing them for paying up to $500K.
Yeah,
up to six
crazy.
figures
for
shilling their casino. That's insane, dude. You've got Ansem shilling it. You've got all kinds of people shilling it. Gainsey, I believe. Oh no, he's anti. I think because they didn't pay him. But the problem is it's technically provable that they can just modify the odds mid-transaction, right? So you can make a bet and you think you're got 50% chance odds of winning. It goes down to 0.5, you know?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing this.
If you own the casino, that's good tech.
It's great tech if you own the casino. This has always been my kind of reservation around blockchain casinos. I'm sure some of them are good or decent or whatever, because at the end of the day, the casino model as it works in the real world, like, you don't need to modify it. It makes a shitload of money. There's no reason to really put your thumb on the scales. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really know why you would need to make it a criminal casino when you're making so much money hand over fist with just the 51% odds.
Yeah.
But that's besides the point.
Well, I think the problem is you see this every time there is like a new big crypto casino. And the problem is that for these kind of things to do well online, they still have to keep that Web 2 element for most of the games. And what that does is create that opaque barrier that is kind of supposed to be the opposite of what's happening in crypto. Like if you look at something like Rollbit or like this one, this new one here, like there's still like this opaque layer for a lot of the actual games. compared to, yes, there are like crypto games where they're able to say, hey, we're using like Chainlink VRF, which like shows on chain the randomness of like the numbers or whatever is being decided. But for a lot of this stuff, there's just not like a good way to like actually put it on chain. And I think until that happens, you're always going to have these issues.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's kind of like what we talked about before with gaming, where it's like, you have these games where it's kind of like, well, why do you even need a token or whatever? If, the game is basically Web 2 where you just happen to have a token. That's kind of how it is with a lot of these casinos. It's kind of like, well, you're a casino, but the crypto element just lets people get around KYC and, payouts,
gambling laws and
like payouts and stuff are on chain, but people should be able to see like the actual randomness that's being decided on the game. I think that would make, and like you said, if done correctly, they're going to be making a ton of money anyway. I mean, it would be,
and like even just like making a sports book makes like a shitload of money. I think you're right, Dracula, in that there is, well, I think the challenge is in the market of it, in that like, what do people actually want? A lot of people, this is going to sound bad, but a lot of people that have gambling problems, they don't necessarily really care too much about like, the fairness of it all. Like this is why people get in mob debts, right? Like they're gambling with like in rigged games or whatever. So I agree though that there needs to be some kind of push to get like the actual more useful play tools available, because of the blockchain incorporated might make like a better casino. But then I think that also maybe opens them up to a little more scrutiny and maybe regulation, because they're not like some vapor company that's just going to disappear.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know PaintSwap. I know Double Sharp was showing me a VRF they made. So maybe we can make like our own Sonic casino that's wholesome chungus as hell, dude.
Well, they could, because the cool thing about the PaintSwap VRF is, there's only like a handful of people that actually have like VRF that like, you can basically like use for your projects. But those things take a cut of every transaction that goes through. I mean, because, obviously they got to make money as well for giving you this service. So the cool thing about the PaintSwap VRF, and it should really get put out there, is that they are going to basically take their cut from fee in. So you get to use their VRF totally free if you're making a game on Sonic and you want to use it. Well,
dude, what the hell? We should just make a game. Dude, I'm just going to make a game on Sonic, dude. That's crazy. And I'm not even going to pay any KOLs, dude. It's going to be such a good game. Everyone's just going to want to play it. I call it Mario.
It's hard, man. It's it's like, it's not Web3 gaming. Yeah, it's not an easy space to be in.
It's not. Maybe if the slots are funny, though. Maybe if you have a funny slot machine, people seem to like that kind of stuff.
Just make a Corval slot machine.
I was actually looking up. This is really off topic. I was looking up. I didn't search out this information. It was a TikTok that came up. It was richest people in Nashville. Because I moved to Nashville here, and I've been completely surprised by the wealth, Dracula. This is like, Nashville is like the richest city I've ever been in, bro. And because it's subtle, dude. It's subtle. You think, oh, it's just like a southern city. It's just like when you drive around, it's like, wow, every neighborhood is like plantations, it seems like. Anyway, one of the wealthiest guys in Nashville, his net worth, $15 billion. You know how he made it? Selling slot machines.
Whoa, okay. So you're on to something there, yeah.
I'm thinking something like, Frogger on blockchain, 1 billion fully diluted value. Yeah, dude. Bobby, yes, dude.
Yeah, Bobby gets it there.
And you gamble on whether or not you can make it across the street. You bet. Bet on if other people can do it.
He said 1 bill FTV. Yeah.
Bobby, bang my DMs, dude. Let's collab.
Yeah, he gets it. You got to put the token at 1 bill FTV. You got to, raise Frogger on chain. It's gonna be a banger.
Frogger on chain. Now next up, I got general memes here. Oh my god, can I show this? You think I can show this, Shrek?
Not sure.
Oh my god, can you believe this, dude? This is with my bag. This was happening in my bags. This is how Sonic is being treated by the other blockchains right now, dude. Look at this, just shoving her to the ground. That's pretty much all we got. Let me see here. I have some sign-off things I got to say. Oh, yeah. Make sure to sign up for our newsletter. Be sure to like, subscribe. It always really helps us. Retweet, all that stuff. And yeah, also none of this was financial advice. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week. We're also going to be doing shows still next week. So there's going to be some permissionless content. We should still be live Tuesday and Thursday. We're going to be busy, dude. I think we're doing Thursday and Friday.
He says, do you think the bartender will serve us a Dracula Spritz 64 ounce? I hope so. That's all I drink now. So it's a gigantic boot full of Aperol Spritz. So Dracula Spritz. See if your bartender's heard about it yet.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And as the Ayatollah Khomeini says, if you like, it's like you go to a shop when you come out, your money's gone, but you bought things. What's important is what you purchased is worth the fortune. So we'll see you guys next week. Adios.
GMSONIC is Corval and Dracula Presley. GM.